Thank you.
And Pam, can you watch if new people come in and admit them, since I can't see them anymore with sharing my screen share?
I think I can.
Perfect. Thank you.
Do you want me to screen share mine? Would that be better?
Oh, sure. Let's do
And
that.
then that, because I don't know if I can let them in. I think you have to let them in.
Okay.
All right. So it's coming, guys. It's coming in a second.
I can start by introducing myself. How about that while you're pulling that up?
And it's
So hi, I'm Lisa Regala. I'm the project director for the new Face of Library Makerspaces. I was also the project director for a previous project that we'll give you a little background on that sort of led into this initiative. So my background's as a scientist, but I've been working in informal STEM, maker, STEAM education for my whole career. And I was formerly the deputy director at Maker Ed, so have some background in building and starting makerspaces as well in different organizations around the country. So really excited for all of you to be here, and we can tell you more about this project. And I'm joined by my colleague, Pam.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pamela Van Helsima. My background is a mix of art and science, and I've worked in museums, higher education, and teacher preparation, where I got really more formally involved with the maker movement and helping teachers incorporate maker philosophy and maker approaches into the classroom. Went and got my MLIS at San Jose State University, and actually became a junior high librarian with a teacher librarian with a makerspace. And that was before getting involved in this statewide project with Lisa. That's when we really started working together. And we'll, like Lisa mentioned, we're going to tell you a little bit about that project, because it really is the groundwork for this new one that we're sharing with you today. Yeah. So let's see, which we're calling the new face of library makerspaces. And if you haven't already seen it, we've set up a website, makersinthelibrary.org, which has some resources there from that previous project. And this is where we're going to put a lot of the information about this project too. So this will be one of there's a couple of different places we'll tell you about, but one of the primary hubs for the new face of library makerspaces. And Lisa can tell you that I've always been saying, I think librarians who do maker need their own group. I mean, we need to be able to talk to each other, because it's different. It's different when you're in the library than when you're running a community makerspace, or you're running a school makerspace, and these different scenarios. And so, you know, how to communicate and share in our specific venue. I really have always wanted to do that. So here we go. We're going to do it now. At least that's what we're endeavoring to do. And Lisa, tell them about the goals of the project.
Sure. Yeah. And I love that people are connecting already in the chat. They said, oh, this is a great way to make contact. So that's the whole goal of this project. So we're already starting here with this info session. So our goal is to form a collective, and we'll talk a little bit more about what we mean by that, but of libraries and library professionals who we're all here to support one another and share resources, build new knowledge, all in service of community-centered maker programming. Our second goal in this project is we want to identify like tools, resources, and strategies, things that you've adapted. Obviously, the last few years have been very different for all of us, right? And a lot of us have had to make a lot of changes and adaptations to our lives, but also to our maker spaces in our libraries because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so another goal of this project is to help collect stories, ideas, to hear from all of you about what changes you made during the pandemic that we can share with others. Again, going back to that collective piece, and figure out what pieces you're kind of keeping moving forward that we want to actually spread. And there's, you know, some benefit that came out of that. And then our last goal is really to share best practices, professional development opportunities, so that other libraries can start to begin the process of developing a makerspace. So our original project, which Pam will tell you about in a minute, was based on starting new makerspaces in libraries. And that will be part of the goal of this project as well. So to help libraries that, you know, maybe their makerspace was shut down during the pandemic. They're not sure how to get it reopened, or they're still trying to figure out how to open one now and kind of this new world we all live in. So it's also to help and support those libraries. So we have to say a thank you to our project supporters. So this project is funded by IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So thank you, IMLS. I'm Lisa. I own a consulting company called Regalium Consulting. My partner Pam has her consulting company, P. Van Helsima Consulting, as well. Khalifa is a library organization based in California, and they're our fiscal sponsor for this. Rockman et al. Is our external researcher and evaluation firm for this. And then we also partnered with Nation of Makers, which is, if you're not familiar, they're definitely worth checking out, a national organization that is really about fostering diversity and inclusion in maker programming across the country. And so we'll share a little bit about how we're going to be working with them throughout this initiative. And we're also backed by some really amazing advisors on this project. So you can see them here. We've got Jerry Valadez. He's run a lot of community-centered maker and STEAM learning spaces in particularly rural areas. Vera is a researcher who's done a lot of work in looking at collectives and looking at how organizations work together, as well as Rafi. He's done that work as well. Christina Fuller-Gregory is on our board as well. She does a lot of work with diversity and inclusion in library spaces. Kelly is on our board from the Association of Small and Rural Libraries. One of our commitments during this project is to serve small and rural libraries as well, and to make sure that we are elevating their voices in the maker movement. And Maggie, Pam's got a little book to show. That's her. She's an author of an awesome book, if you haven't seen, Remaking the Library Makerspace, and we're honored to have her on our advisory board as well.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this original project that we launched in the very beginning of 2018 to the California State Library came to Bay Area Discovery Museum, where Lisa was one of the researchers there, and said, you know, a lot of libraries, we have granted equipment to a lot of libraries in California to have maker spaces, but we know that some of this stuff is just sitting in a closet or gathering dust, and they're not really sure what to do with it. And especially some of these rural libraries or libraries that are under-resourced and understaffed, they really could use some help. So this is, so what happened was Lisa organized a project and brought me on to help manage the project of helping a cohort of 10 under-resourced libraries, and they were diverse geographically from across the state, also in the kind of demographics and communities they were housed in, either very rural, very small, or larger systems, or urban. So it was a real mix, but we helped those libraries build a maker program, and none of them had one already. But we started with the people, and this is our approach, to really start with the people who are going to make and the people who the library served. And we talked to them, and we actually coached our library staff members to do a lot of relationship building with folks to find out what they want, what they wanted to learn, what they already knew how to do and loved to make, what kind of things were maybe preventing them from being able to do that making, or would they want to share some things they knew how to make, and really make this program that they built reflective of the place and the people of that area. And so what resulted was 10 completely different makerspace programs, because they were really built from the grassroots up. But all of them followed the same kind of values and principles of maker movement, where everybody has a creative capacity that we learn by sharing, we learn by tinkering and doing things, and we have a very broad view of what making, what creative making was. It wasn't a narrow view, but a broad view. And then during this whole thing, these libraries didn't maybe 100% know it when they entered the project, but they were kind of guinea pigs in a way. They were all, they really helped form this toolkit, because they helped form the process and the tools that were, and they tested them. And so we ended up with a publication, the Makers in the Library Toolkit, that is really built by this cohort of libraries with our help, of course, to bring it all together. And then, but it launched during the pandemic, and we finished it during the pandemic, and like these libraries are kind of closed. Like we can't even go out and tell more people about it. It was just difficult. And so that's when Lisa and I were thinking, well, first of all, our libraries are doing actually kind of cool things right now, even though that's not exactly what we had set them up to do, but they're creating all these new video programs, and they're making kits, and they're actually producing PPE in bulk. You know, they're like really answering needs that are immediate needs in the community, but just in a different way. And so we wanted to build this as a network building project, but also, wow, how did you guys adapt? How did you guys invent new things? And I wonder if those things are going to continue. Like what things are going to stick? What things are going to, were just for emergency purposes? You know what I mean? So this is just a little background of what we mean by a maker. And we invite all of you as well to help us continue this definition, because we, you know, it can evolve, but we think that curious, playful, hands-on resourcefulness, self-directed, and persistent, learning all the time, even when things fail, collaborating. These are all the kind of mindsets that we try to encourage in all the programs, and reflection is part of it. So it's like looking, hey, did we really follow those principles in this program, and how can we do it better? And also when we say makerspace, it's space could be time in your calendar. Space could be a room that's dedicated for this purpose. Space could be a multi-purpose room. Space could be a space that transitions to this because you wheeled a cart of materials or tools into the space, and it's on your calendar, and you're setting a time and dedicating attention to this activity of making with others. And some of the maker spaces were virtual programs. Some of the maker spaces were collaborative program boxes that circulated between libraries, either in a consortium or within a system itself. So, and community events, mini maker fairs, we even had those, which are one-time thing a year. That's an awesome learning opportunity. So we were very open to different ways of launching maker programs. And this is just a map to show you the geographic range of where those 10 libraries were. And San Bernardino, I saw is on this call today. So shout out to one of our 10 libraries in San Bernardino. And if I missed somebody else who joined here, sorry, I didn't mean to miss you. But these folks, and then you can see they're just people like us, all really awesome, creative, resourceful, playful librarians. And that's showing them when we were having a gathering. We did one in-person gathering each year of the project, of the 3 years of the project, and that's in Atascadero. And really it was about a process. And so why are we telling you all this? We're telling you because this is how we think about library maker programs, and not only how to get one started, but how to keep one sustainable, and how to keep it always in continuous improvement as a program itself. So it's a lot about listening and discovering what kind of assets are local in your community and interests, and talking to the people, because it always comes down to the people. And then trying things out and not being afraid to. And I know planning is a huge part of being a librarian and having all your ducks in a row. And so this was actually a cultural shift for a lot of our libraries, to be able to just quick try something in a small scale, and then notice if it was going to work or not, or had traction, or was worth investing time and money in. We really wanted people to do small trials before they invested a whole bunch of stuff, and then had their administrator say, no, let's stop doing that. Let's do these small tests. Then how do we build it up bigger in implementation while we're reflecting and making sure we're taking some notes and getting feedback from those who are participating, and then share that news so we can get more money, more participants, and if you have a growth trajectory, and make sure it doesn't, it's not temporary. That's even what we want to do with this project. We have a 2-year grant, but we want to build sustainability into it. So this is just the beginning, and it can continue to survive after the grant cycle is finished. And just to show you, these are all just an example of some of the downloadable tools from our toolkit. You can see they were built to be practical and useful and easy to adapt for your space. And what happened is we kind of became a little community, our 10 libraries, but also each one of the participating libraries saw this as a way of really supporting community in their libraries themselves. And likewise, that's the same kind of thing we're trying to do here. We think librarians and library staff and even volunteers in libraries who develop and deliver maker programs, we could be a community together, a community that just enjoys sharing ideas, but also supports and helps problem solve, and potentially lots of other things too. In fact, Lisa's going to get into that in the next section.
So now kind of shifting gears to what we're moving on to next. As I mentioned, we're looking to form a collective, and that word can mean different things to different people. So we wanted to define what we meant by it here. And we see that as a decentralized group of professionals like yourselves with similar interests. So this shared passion of bringing maker programming to your communities, who are going to work together to achieve a common objective. So as part of this collective, we're looking for libraries and library staff to engage with us at different levels to help us grow our membership, share resources, support one another in a variety of ways. So obviously right now you're on this call because you heard about one of the ways to be involved as a charter member, but we also want to talk to you about other ways that we see this collective shaping and growing over the time too. So you can think about which way for you to engage is right for you. So things that we envision that a collective might do is there'll be places where you can just say, hey, here's this really cool thing I saw. Here's something really interesting I read. Here's a great podcast you should listen to. Oh, I saw this great article to put out into the community. Here's a great webinar people should be part of, right? That you might want to be conveying information or just going on yourself to consume that information.
Or create it.
Or create it, yes. There's also a part about giving feedback. So getting some crowdsourced information, maybe participating in surveys and focus groups, maybe submitting activity ideas to some sort of collection that people can respond to. Hey, I tried this and I tweaked this, right? People might be sharing information about themselves and their expertise and getting feedback and working together. And that leads to working together. So other ways we hope that this collective will grow is that, maybe there are conferences that we decide to go to and, come together and present, or maybe we kind of set up our own meeting pre-conference, right, to something that we want to do, a hack day before a big conference that we all want to get together as a group, that we might just even network virtually too. It doesn't have to be in person, but there might be local or regional meetups or online events as well, but that we're going to work together to kind of share those resources and build towards this common goal. So how do we see this coming together? We're putting our little caveat on this is that this is, our way, one way that we envision this collective being built. These charter members, which is the application that we have out now, we want these people to be on our team with us, right? And help us decide how the rest of this collective is built and the exact types of activities we do. So that last slide had a lot of different things. Obviously, our collective can't do all of those things, right? But these charter members are going to help us decide what are the best things that we can do for this community? What are going to be the most impactful? What are the best communication channels? So the charter members, which is the application we're talking about now, these are the folks that are going to be with Pam and I. They're going to meet with us often and start talking about how we want to build out and grow this collective. So we call these our tier 1 charter members, but these are libraries that have some experience with maker programming. You've had a maker program, you've had it before the pandemic, and it could have changed and morphed along the way, but you've been able to keep some sort of maker programming going during the pandemic, and you're still doing that today. So we're looking for, right now, in this charter members, some groups that have had some maker experience, that have geographic diversity. I mean, this is just an illustration, but we envision that we'll have, libraries spread across the country as part of this charter group. And we want different library types. So if you're a school library, if you're an academic library, if you're a public library, if you're a tribal library, you're all welcome to apply. We do have a commitment in our grant to have at least 3 of our charter members be from a small or rural library as part of our commitment to serving those audiences. So that doesn't mean if you're from a larger urban setting that you can't apply. The other half will be from that group, but just know that that is part of our selection criteria. So this project is 2 years, as Pam mentioned. It just started September 1st, so we're just getting the ball rolling, and it ends in August 31st, 2023. But we hope it doesn't end there. Our goal in creating this is that we're creating something that's going to be sustainable. I didn't mention it, but one of the ways we think the collective could work together too is to help find funding opportunities to not only support your work, but support the collective in general. And so we're in phase 1 now. We're researching, we're listening, and we're getting ready to launch the collective. The other ways that you can be involved, because you might leave this conversation today and say, actually, charter member, that's not the right fit for me in my library, right? And that's okay. There's going to be other ways to get involved in the collective, and we welcome you at any of these ways. So we see that we'll also might have this level we call ambassadors, but groups that this would be about 20 or so libraries across the country now, who are the ones really helping to share resources, collaborate, build relationships. You might be mentoring other libraries. You might be writing a blog post. You might be, helping to create some activities that you want to share. You might be just a more active contributor on social media, helping prompt conversations and things like that. But
maybe hosting regional meetups, things like that.
Yes. Yeah. So there will be a smaller stipend for ambassadors to be involved, because you will be doing some work in this as well, but that'll be kind of another layer of ways to get involved. We aren't going to put the call out for ambassadors until we get our charter members together and we kind of decide and get things going. So I would say the earliest we'd probably bring on ambassadors is maybe next summer. But just to kind of keep that in mind, that's another way to get involved. And then the third way is, we hope to have lots and lots of community members, which we've started to build already through some social media channels. We had a Facebook group, Makers in the Library, already established from our last project. We've been partnering with Nation of Makers. They have a Slack channel for libraries and kind of getting that going. So we've been, starting to create this community. You all now are part of our community. and so, but that we'll keep growing that community over time. And that these are also people, of course, that can share information and create content as well.
Yeah, it's just the first two involved a little bit more formal role and actually some compensation. So that's some of the differentiation there. But everybody can work hard and do all kinds of stuff for the community. We welcome that.
And as a charter member, so that's the application that's out now. To be a charter member, you're going to receive a stipend. Your library will receive a stipend for committing to, you're helping us, again, you're going to be meeting regularly with Pam and I. You're going to help us create the systems and processes, the structure, right, for how this collective will be run. You're going to help us shape the mission and vision, to help foster these communication channels, help us grow the membership, help us recruit ambassadors and bring that group on. So you're really part of the core team that's helping to lead and launch this collective. So you're going to alert us, right, when important issues arise in the field, like, hey, wow, we really should pay special attention to this. We really should have a webinar on this. We should do a Zoom meeting about this topic. It's really salient right now. Help us, lead activities. Part of our goal in this project is to put out a survey to the field about how libraries across the country have adapted during COVID. So helping us to get that information and helping us learn how that modification happened. And then you're here to serve as a mentor for other libraries, right? Part of our goal is to help bring on other new libraries who may have never had a maker program. Like we said, maybe had a program shut down and aren't sure how to get started. So you're there also to help mentor these new libraries as well. So you're also here to kind of act as a spokesperson, right, for the collective, helping us, recruit, promote work of future leaders, future ambassadors, helping us build relationships, whether that's locally, regionally, maybe there's some national organizations you're part of that you want to make aware of what's happening. Being an active member of either our Slack channel, as I mentioned, that's connected to the Nation of Makers, or the Facebook group that we mentioned, or both. And sharing the knowledge that you have. You're coming on to this project because you bring a lot of knowledge and expertise that we want you to be able to share with this community. So whether that's doing a training, doing a webinar, a conference talk, writing a blog post, sharing some great activity ideas, some videos you created, whatever it might be, as well, so that you're actively helping share content.
So pretty soon we'll have a time for Q&A, but I wanted to call your attention to an info sheet that this is just a quick, short URL so that you can find that info sheet, which is attached to our website. But I'm going to switch now to that sheet itself, which has FAQs really that you may be already wondering about. So I'll increase the size of that a little bit. This info sheet that you can download, it's a PDF, has project goals on it that you already heard in what Lisa described earlier, and a little bit about us with links to information if there's a video that described and interviewed people that were involved in that previous project, if you or others in your library want to review that information. The outline for what we mean by a charter member of the collective. There's a stipend of $6,000 to $7,000 for that role to participate. And why is there a range? Because we're going to do 6 or 7 libraries. We just don't know how many libraries will apply. So we left some flexibility there. We like to leave flexibility in everything we do, and we think makerspaces need to do that. So we're just leaving some range, and then and what that commitment is. So that information is there. And then what's the criteria for being selected as a charter member, how we're going to pick those things. Like we said, geographic distribution, diversity, equity, and inclusion are important parts. We're kind of curious even about how you do your staffing in your makerspace and if that's reflective of those principles as well. And when we had to look for under-resourced libraries with our previous project, there's no standard definition of that. So we looked at information about the location. Are the kids getting free lunch? What's the income level? Socioeconomic indicators of the population you serve, because it's not just the library itself, but you're part of this larger community that maybe have very high need, and you're doing wonderful work to support those people. And so as you see, we did these two, we did an information session in October, and now this one, just those two. But that doesn't mean if you have a question, just email us. It's fine. We're happy to answer your questions. Then we've got some links here to our website and the form itself, which is simply a Google form. And I'm going to show you some of the things that are included in the application. By the way, if you're a charter library, you have to have 2 people listed as participants in your library, plus an administrator. And why is that? Because over 2 years, somebody may get promoted or leave or something like that. And we just want that continuity there. So we like to build in that little bit of sustainability. And in a small or rural library, there may not be a third person. So it may be just the director and the library staff member. So that can do double duty if it's a very small library. And there we go. It's lagging a little bit. This sheet has all of the questions that are on the application on it, just so it's convenient for you. So you don't have to be like on the fly answering the questions, but you can review them and think about what the answers to those are. So you're going to tell us a little bit about your library's maker programming, and then why you think this is a good fit for your library and you. And then you're also give us a short video clip, and we don't want that to be intimidating at all. It could be just like a selfie phone video, but telling us a little bit about why you think. Give us your elevator speech for why you think this is a great fit. And you don't need to edit it, and it doesn't have to be professional looking, but we do want to just know you a little bit more. And then we have no idea how many people will apply, how many libraries, so because this is very new. But what we'll do with the application process is we will choose finalists that we will then set up some interviews. I think we have some information about that in the timeline is in this. Let me get to that. Oh, did we go over the selection criteria, Lisa?
We did not do that yet. I'm putting some links in the chat. Folks were asking how other ways to get involved. They wanted the link to the info sheet, and just we're asking, if this wasn't the right fit, how could they get involved now? So I'm just putting the links to the newsletter, our Facebook group, our Slack channel in there as well. One
thing I think, Lisa's role is really directing this project, and my role is to be the community manager, which means like I need to help have something there for people to want to be part of. So developing content and sharing content, and actually just inviting conversation. That's kind of the role that I'm going to be doing in these two social channels, Slack and on Facebook. And I started seeing some of that begin. And by the way, that Facebook group grew out of the PLA conference in Nashville. We launched it after that. We had a maker meetup at that conference. And guess what? COVID started like right after that. So we had a bunch of people join it, but then it was like, whoa, what's happening in the world? So it was like kind of a weird beginning. It was a good beginning, a little bit weird beginning. I'm really happy to see a lot of new faces in there. It's beginning to pick up some speed. So, if you like going on there and just chatting about library maker stuff, join in. I think there's a lot of interest, and people are eager to have discussions. Just throw questions in there. Then the group that's on Slack, it's interesting. I don't know if you're involved the Nation of Makers at all. They have an annual conference called NomCon. And in fact, we wanted to mention that if you are a charter library, the grant will support you in attending NomCon. So that's going to be part of the deal because they are our project partner. And it's a really good diverse group. According to Dorothy, who is the executive director, she said that it's the libraries group right now is the most active group in their working groups. They have these things called working groups, and so it's an active group. There's a lot of academic libraries in it actually, but there are school libraries and there are public libraries in there too. So it's kind of cool. Lisa, do you want to go over the selection criteria?
Sure.
Okay.
So we touched a little bit, but just want to be clear kind of what we're doing. We're going to be involving our advisors to help us in the selection process. But again, your library for this piece of being a charter member needs to have been running maker programming. And remember, we use maker programming, Makerspace loosely. That can be a box, that can be virtual, right? But for approximately 3 years. So meaning you've had a program a little bit before the pandemic and you were running something during the pandemic. We're looking for that broad geographic diversity. And we're really looking for libraries that are committed to justice, equity, diversity and inclusion principles as well. We want to make sure that we are holding true to that and that it's part of your staff culture and it's part of the culture of this collective. We want the selected libraries to represent a variety of Makerspace programming models. So, we ask you what kind of maker programming you have, and we like to see that someone, had a virtual program, someone has something on a cart, someone does it on a box, right? We want to kind of represent all those different models. We are open to all library types. And so we're going to be looking for a diversity of library types as well to make sure this collective represents those different groups. But, you know, this is not limited to this list, but if you're a school library, public library, academic library, military library, tribal library, tool lending library, you know, we definitely want you to apply. We want to have a diversity of library types included. These 6 to 7 libraries, they're going to be leaders in the field, right? You're helping us really to launch this collective. And so we need to see a demonstration of your ability to connect not only within your local community to kind of share things that you've done locally, partnerships you've made. I saw someone in Colorado was sharing some awesome outreach opportunities in the chat they were doing, but also with national professional groups, organizations you might have been connected with. Maybe you've been part of that library Slack channel on Nation of Makers for many years, and you want to tell us about that. So definitely we want to hear that. We're looking for folks that are trying to connect beyond the walls of their libraries. And we're also going to be, you know, looking around at your social media, your online presence, your participation in conferences, events, and things. Again, you're a spokesperson for this collective as being part of this charter group, and it's important that we look at that. And I know this question came up in our last session, so I just want to mention it too, because it can get a little confusing. For our charter members, these are libraries. We are asking your library to apply. Obviously, there are people that run libraries, right? So it will be a human being that's applying for this. But, you know, you might leave this library, you might get a promotion, you might move to a different state, and it's that library that's still going to be the charter member. So that's why part of the application that you might saw Pam go over, like we're asking for a letter of support from your director or administrator at your library, right? Because it's your library that's being part of the charter group. Obviously, you as a human at that library are going to be the person that's part of this collective as well, but that it is your library that's applying. And then the other tiers, like being an ambassador and a community member, is more individual. So an individual could join in at that level.
Which we think it's your library, if it's the right fit, may like that kind of recognition and exposure for all the great work you're doing. So hopefully that's a selling point. And here's the timeline for this piece. Is, you know, it's coming up. November 15 is our due date. If we have to extend it a few days, we may, but we're trying to get this done amidst all the holidays and everything. So we'll do interviews with finalists for the most part after the Thanksgiving holiday up until December 10. And then by December 20 at the latest, we should know who this group of charter libraries are, so that as soon as 2022, I can't even believe I'm saying it, it sounds so weird, is here, we can hit the ground running. I know it's so interesting when we put out a press release about this project, we got so much interest and people really wanted to join the collective, but we didn't even form the collective yet. So we really want to get started because there's a lot of people who want to be part of it. And goodness knows, we got to get this thing going. So that's why it's kind of a tight turnaround, but we hope it doesn't hinder you from being able to apply.
Yeah, and please, just if something comes up or there is a hindrance or you really want to apply or you have a question and you didn't feel confident to share in this format, just reach out to us.
Oh yeah, and here's how you can reach out to us.
Hey, look at that, perfect timing. It's like I might have known that was the next slide.
Yeah, and you know what, I'll put it in the chat again because I know if you came in later, you may not have that easy to just copy and paste. So I'm gonna put our contact in there.
Yeah, so here's all of our contact information. That's for Pam and I individually. We also have just kind of a general Makers in the Library email set up that as a collective member, you will have access to. Right now, Pam and I get all those emails too. So, but we're checking that. So you can email us in any of those ways, but please feel free to reach out. And I think we can probably just leave that up for a minute, and I think we're just open to questions. I think I've answered what was in the chat. If I missed it, because the chat was getting quite long, please feel free to put it in there. Oh, I'm attending by phone. Can we have the text chat file? yes, I don't see why not. We could just, if you had your email address in there and we're sending this out, we can certainly send the recording as
Yeah.
well as that.
Yeah, I will definitely do that. Absolutely.
Yeah, someone else asked that too. Lots of good stuff in there. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions? Anybody already involved in a maker collective, that library collective that we don't know about? We certainly have seen community practice. Oh, okay, great.
Judith, thank you. Judith, you raised your hand.
Getting used to this on my phone. Usually I do it on my laptop, so it's a lot easier. We have a little bit of an informal, well, first of all, I'm Judith. I'm in the Rockwood Makerspace. We are in Portland, Oregon, on the east side of Portland. So not downtown, not in any of the much more well-funded parts of the city. And we have been communicating with other makerspaces around our area. We have a shared Gmail account that we're testing out for sharing resources, for support. We are, as far as I know, most of the makerspaces that we have the shared email account with are also part of UMedia, which is the UMedia Learning Labs. It's libraries, it's museums, makerspaces. But I think what we were trying to go for in that smaller regional model was like we called ourselves the P&W makers. So, you know, folks that are in Vancouver, in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, you know, Hillsborough, all the big ones. So most of our friends are very local to us, folks that we can drive to if we wanted to see their makerspaces. We visited most of them. They visited us. Just neighbors, really. So I really, really like the idea of a bigger network like this and more ways to participate. So we were lucky enough to get a link to your meetup because I wouldn't have heard about it otherwise. I'm not part of that mailing list, but one of our other coworkers was like, hey, let me send it your way. So glad to be here and interested, yes, to make connections and learn more about this charter. Thank you.
Oh, that's great to hear. And I love how you're already connecting in the Pacific Northwest like that. And so, you know, we want to be very open. And somebody mentioned Plix. I don't know if those of you have been involved in Plix. I have too. I've participated in their workshops over the last couple of years, actually, and we love Plix. And in fact, they were funded in the last year by the same kind of grant that IMLS granted to us. And we've been in dialogue with them saying, you know what, we are complementary, our two projects, to what you're doing. We're not stealing your thunder or changing, because they're really elevating creative learning experiences. And we're really trying to form a network to make sure, you know, that's a huge part of it. But we want to make sure all those other bits and pieces of what it means to run a maker program are covered, because, you know, I don't need to tell you how much is involved in running a maker program in a library. There's a lot: operations, staffing, training, funding, marketing, evaluation, all those things. We want to make sure we're encompassing all those nuts and bolts. So, and just helping people out. Yeah. Any other raise a hand question? Makerspace open houses. I envision that we would have a regular cycle, like we trying to figure out, like, oh, how are we going to run, help support this community? I envision having a regular rhythm of featured content that we could share and collect, like video tours of people's makerspaces, highlighted programs, different models. Here's how we do evaluation. And some examples of that. Here's some way, hey, let's all get together and apply for a grant together. Who wants to be part of a new project? There, you know, collective, I even think, is there a way to do collective purchasing of things? Who knows? We don't know. Maybe maybe those charter libraries will help us figure that out. I think sky's the limit when you think about it, but the last thing we want to do is tell you guys what the collective is. We want to be a flat organization where you're all building it together. Let's see.
There's a group in Idaho too, it looks like, forming a similar STEM focused, but looks like there might be some overlap. Thanks for putting the link in there. We'll check it
Yeah,
out.
I love that.
Oh, Judith, did you have another question?
I did. I haven't looked at the documentation very thoroughly because my supervisor and I were talking about just, hey, go explore, go to the meeting, see what it's about. I am wondering about the time commitment.
Oh, yeah.
How much time, and you might have answered this already in the documents and I just haven't looked at them. But yeah, about how much time would the charter members be spending per week, per month? Just a ballpark idea. Thank you.
We did think about that. Initially, as we're building the structure, we wanted to do 2 one-hour meetings a month. And then I'm envisioning out of that meeting, there may be a thing that you have to do. And so that may be a few hours. So if you did 2 a month plus a few hours after each one, it may be 10 hours a month or something like that at the initial stage where we're really trying to build this thing. That's me guessing. And you know, with some projects, if it's your heart passion project, you may end up doing more than that. I don't know, but that's how I pictured it anyway. I don't know if that's helpful. Does anybody, I'm curious, even just like putting your hand up or reacting, does anyone even think, oh yeah, I'm gonna take a closer look and maybe my library is a good fit? You don't have to put yourself, if there's just a couple. Here we are like trying this risky thing and wondering if anybody wants to do it.
Anyone want to join us? Yeah. Okay, we got a few. Good.
We hope so. And honestly, I've had people also reach out to me and say, oh gosh, I can't do this, but I want to be an ambassador. Can you please email me when that happens? And I'm like, okay, if you say that, I'm going to email you back and say, I'm going to feature your library first on a blog article or a video or something. I want to know you now. I want to make sure I'm capturing you now. If you're interested. The other thing that's definitely, as librarians, I think you'll appreciate this, we would like to curate some amazing pandemic era resources or maybe previous training materials, distance programs, virtual programs, things, just curate what you're doing and have a place where we house that so anybody can, those are the things you're willing to share, and a kind of open source and have that available too. Looks like Jennifer has a question.
Oh, I think Jennifer, it was her hand is still up from.
I'm going to wave back to you, Jennifer.
Yeah. That's the silly thing about Zoom. I think you have to unraise your hand, right? It doesn't just go away.
That is weird. And we like to have things to be not too boring, right, Lisa?
We like to have fun.
We try.
For sure. We try. Judith, did you have another question?
I did. My other question was, the commitment is for 2 years, correct? And then after that is, well, I guess I'm wondering, will there be rotating members? So like, here are these charter members that started, but then they've been mentoring other makerspaces and they feel, hey, my buddy over at this location is ready, let me nominate them. Or I guess what I wanted is, you mentioned, you know, having it be dynamic and not static and have change. So I'm wondering about like that sort of handoff and how that will happen. So if it is meant to happen, I'm hoping it is, because, you know, I think the Rockwood Makerspace here in Portland, Oregon, Multnomah County, yay. We have been around for a while. We have 6 years, if I'm not mistaken. I joined in a little bit later, but I feel that so much mentorship we had was from other spaces around the country, and we'd love to pass it on. And once we have done what we needed to do, you know, we've played or danced, and now it's time to let other folks, you know, cut in. So I'm just wondering about that process and more about the mentorship aspect and how we will be able to support if Rockwood does become part of this collective. I'm already signing myself up, which is great, but you know, we got to figure it out with the supervisor and all the other stuff we have going on. So yeah, if you'd let me know more about that mentorship aspect and cycling in and out.
Yeah, I can touch on the cycling in and out. I mean, I think I would say, yes, the how about it is what these charter members are going to help decide. So these first few months of the charter is deciding those things, like what is a term for a charter member? It's actually, you know, creating the foundation for how this collective will run and how the charter members will move forward. So that'll be part of our meetings at the start when we create the systems and processes. But I do agree that it's nice to have rotation, right? The exact term of that, I think we'll figure out once we get everyone on board.
And in our initial grant proposal, we did propose that the ambassador thing is a temporary term that rotates a bit. So we did kind of think about what you were saying and say, okay, be an ambassador for 6 months, because also maybe, especially in a small rural library, a longer commitment is really not feasible. And we did want to capture that concern. But hey, I can do it for 6 months, or I can do it for 3 months. So we wanted, and again, we were really careful because we didn't want to dictate that if the charter members wanted to do it slightly differently, but that's how we build out the funding, actually, because we had to have a budget for it.
And the mentor.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. I'm David from San Mateo County Libraries.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Pamela and Lisa, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And I'm just so impressed with how we have you've casted such a wide net to get representation and diverse employees from all over the nation. I would hope that if you haven't thought of this already, that the collective would strongly consider having, since you have a lot of contact information, having an opportunity to create some sort of online platform for libraries to contribute maker curriculum if they're interested. Because, you know, sometimes when we get a new technology at our libraries, we have to you know, invent the curriculum. But if we had some sort of shared online platform where you have the different technologies and then curriculum that is housed within that, where people can freely contribute, that might be a really neat opportunity for a lot of people with diverse experiences in making to upload resources that people can pull from. And if everyone's contributing, it just becomes this really strong resource that can better everyone's library system in makerspaces.
I'd say amen to that. And that made me think, David, that I forgot to mention this part, that as being a partner with Nation of Makers, they are dedicating part of their website to our work with libraries. And so we could house it in a hub there that will be, that's a nonprofit that's going to just continue on beyond the life of this grant. And that's why we have our website for getting started and with our toolkit and things like that. But really Nation of Makers is going, since they're a partner in this, we're building out a few pages on their website or more. And they already do some resource like hackathons. So we can connect with how they are already starting to do that and develop more and bring cool ideas of how to make it searchable, how to make it easy to navigate, how we can find what we want and share good ideas.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, David, for bringing that up.
Yeah, we're trying to make your life easier, I think. It'll be a bit of work at first to get this built, but then this is going to make running a library makerspace less of a burden if we can share some of those ideas, like you said, David. Mm-hmm. All right, we have 3 more minutes.
I know, we're almost out of time. I know a couple of people had to sign off. If you have to sign off, thank you for joining us. But if anyone has a last question, we can probably take one more.
All right, we need some kind of nice closing music or something.
I
What kind of
know. I didn't have
plan?
my music ready this
Oh.
time. We usually have music, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna show off my mask. I do have a librarian maker mask for the pandemic, just so you can see that. Because we have to show it, you know? Don't keep it secret. All right, I'll follow up. If you put your email in there, you'll be receiving an email from us, and it'll have the recording of this and the chat, so you'll be able to use that and reach out if you have questions. And we welcome you into the collective.
And reach out to each other too. I think that was a
Oh
great.
yeah, that's the point.
So, yep, yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Take care.